welcome you all to Trek Wars.
Today on Trek Wars, we'll be discussing the Springfield-class long-range exploration frigate. The Springfield-class was a type of vessel used in Starfleet in the 24th century, for an example of which was with the USS Checkervault NCC-57302. It was classified as a frigate and was mostly used for deep space exploration and patrol duty. It was 325 meters in length and had a standard crew complement of around 430. It was capable of a top speed of warp 9.2 for a short period, while its maximum stability speed was warp 7.5. It was armed with several phaser banks, distributed with phaser arrays at various points along its hull, and 2 photon torpedo launchers located on the sides of the navigational deflector. The Springfield class comprised a saucer section that was similar in style to that of the USS Galaxy class ships, but on a smaller scale. It also had a V-shaped structure cut into the back of the saucer. This provided a link to a mission-specific module that sat above and behind the saucer. It could be configured to carry more sensors, cargo, or weapons, depending on the mission profile. 2 thin warp nacelles similar in style to those fitted on the Shailene-class starships were positioned either side of the module, and they were attached by wings-like pylons. So let's take a moment. Let's try to understand why they would do this. What is the purpose of this? Now, if they are conducting some kind of issue or there's some kind of problem that takes a rise from the engine, they can disconnect. This is honestly the reason why the ship is like this. This ship is actually a prototype. So this design was a prototype using some newer technology, and it was integrating newer technology with some existing technology. And just in case there was some instability or some kind of issue, they could drop the engines and move the saucer section away to a safe location. So that's the reason why they did this. So in case of a warp core breach, you can disconnect these pylons from obviously the engineering section and then move away. And then you're not going to lose the entire ship. So this is the reason why this ship is designed in this strange, unique way. This is not a very effective design. It's not something that you would normally want to do unless you are doing something or you have some reason why you would need to possibly disconnect your engineering section in an emergency. So what's the technology? So the warp nacelles in here are a pretty modern technology at this point in time. They're not brand new. They've been around for a while, but other components of the ship are part of the Galaxy class project. So obviously they are using some Galaxy class new technology that isn't completely bug-free yet. So this new engine, or warp core, depending on how you want to look at it, the warp core itself is the same kind of warp core and same kind of design that you would see in the future Galaxy class. Now, obviously there's some concerns about instability between these technologies, that this ship was designed this way for that reason. Now, this never panned out to be an actual issue, and it was, in hindsight, not necessary, but the ship was already designed, and so the Federation just kept it. Alright, so now let's talk about obviously the most obvious feature of this ship, is the module pod. It's a huge part of the ship, and it's designed to have cargo, sensors, weapons, and crew quarters. So this ship was designed as a multi-role starship. This is why you have a module. Now, yes, it was used for deep space exploration, and then it was used for patrol duties. And the reason why it's more of a patrol ship than a long-range exploration, I'll discuss that in a minute. But I just want to point out that this cargo pod, it could be used for all these different categories. Most of the time, it just stuck with the cargo or the sensor. Very rarely was it actually using a weapons pod, and almost never was there a crew quarters, additional crew quarters. Now, the only reason you would add a pod that has additional crew quarters is if you're transporting a large amount of people from one colony to another colony. The ship is definitely designed for deep space exploration, and it's definitely designed to be on the outskirts of Federation territories, and we know this because of the engines that it's using. So its actual role is told to us by the engines that it's using. So the warp engines that this ship is using are unique, and very few Federation starships are using these warp nacelles. And I want to talk to you guys and show you why. Let's compare the New Orleans and the Springfield class. So these are two frigates, and let's discuss the difference, because one is using one kind of warp nacelle and the other is using a different kind of warp nacelle. So what are the differences besides their physical differences? Because one's square looking and one looks like the Enterprises. Well, it's completely and utterly different performances. Okay, so let's talk about the Springfield. So the Springfield is able to cruise at 7.5. Now its maximum is 9.2, but it can't hold that maximum speed for very long. On the other hand, the New Orleans class is cruising at warp 6, and it can maintain a 9.3 for like 12 hours. So in order to have a significantly higher cruising speed, you are losing top speed and then how long you can maintain a high performance speed, such as 9.3. So you basically, in order to be able to raise your consistent warp speed, you're losing your max and the amount of time you can hold max speed. So the reason why I think this ship is more of a patrol ship than anything else is because of obviously the modules. So it's got all these different mission profiles it can do, and then also if you're going to be guarding territory and you can cruise around the border at 7.5, because most of the time you're not going to be needing to get to a fight. Like the Federation isn't fighting all the time, and it's not really necessary. Most of the time you're just out there to show your presence, to show a presence of force, to basically ward off pirates. And if you can cover more general area in a quicker amount of time, then your ship's going to be more efficient at defending borders. Now, there could be an argument that this could be more of an advantage because you could get deeper into space longer because you're cruising, but I really think that being in deep space, you need to be able to have those high level speeds, and you need to be able to get out of a dangerous situation because you're by yourself, and then maintain a high speed to get away from dangerous targets, where this ship could be overtaken rather easily. Number one, it's got lower warp speeds than average, and it can't maintain high levels of warp speed. So if you're in a bad situation in deep space, you're more likely to be overrun by an enemy vessel than your counterpart. Alright, so now let's kind of just talk about the ship's defenses. And there's some different modifications. So some of the ships have 6 Type 10 phasers, and they have 2 torpedo launchers. Their shields are going to be around 1,000, 40,000, which is the same as the first prototype Defiant. Its whole value is 485,000, has a full defense of 1,525,000. And like I said, the ship is a frigate. It's 325 meters. Now, for a frigate, this ship is very well armored. It has good weapons, good defenses. It's got a powerful shield for a ship of its size. Its whole value is okay, but where it really shines is those phasers. Those are top of the line phasers, and they're going to be great for defense. Its torpedo modules are just standard. They're going to be next gen TNG torpedo launchers, and they're single shot. Remember, this is the blending between old and new technology. So when you look at the most common variant though, most of the time this ship is carrying 8 phaser strips. Now there's one on top, there are 2 on the sides which are located on the pylons that are connecting the warp nacelles. And then underneath the ship there are 5 phaser strips. And like I said earlier, there are 2 standard torpedo launchers. Those torpedo launchers are located next to the navigational deflector. They would be firing TNG level torpedoes, which are pretty strong, but this would be single shot torpedo launchers. There's nothing spectacular about the torpedoes in the ship. They're pretty average. And somewhat of a design flaw is there's only 2, and they're located in the front. So if this ship is being chased, it doesn't have any way of defending itself, which in my opinion is kind of a bad design flaw. Alright, so let's look at its weapons altogether. So typically it's going to have 8 Type 10 phasers, which give it a phaser output of 520,000, which is pretty reasonable. This is about half of what a Galaxy class is carrying. Now, its torpedo complement, it's got 2 torpedo launchers, which is 342,000 because they're both modern. That's decent. So it gives an overall attack value of 862,000. So for a frigate, this is a lot of firepower. For a ship that's, relatively small, being half the length of a Galaxy class, at 325 meters, you're getting a lot of firepower, and you have good maneuverability, and you have good sustained speed. This ship would be good for patrol, and it would also be really good for bringing supplies from point A to point B, because the ship can travel at 7.5 on the warp scale, which is pretty fast, and it can maintain that. So you can get from point A to point B relatively quick. You can carry a decent amount of cargo, and really there's nothing out there that can really take you on that's in your size, right? This ship outguns any frigate by a long haul. I don't think of any of the other minor races or even the great powers that have a frigate that is capable of taking on one of these ships. So the real question is this ship's so good, why don't we see very many of them? Well, it's somewhat of a failed design. So those warp engines, though it does give it good, sustainable speed, it is severely lacking in top speed and how long it can hold that top speed. That's why the Federation designed Galaxy class engines, because they can do all those things. And yes, you're losing 1.5 in your general speed, but it doesn't matter, because when you need to get somewhere and you need to get there quickly, you can do it. This ship can't do that. So it can't actually answer an extreme call in a quick manner, because it doesn't have a long warp speed sustainability. So in a pinch, the ship is going to be too slow. And so this is why it was phased out with ships that are more advanced, and it was designed that we need the speed and the long range speed definitely over sustained neutral speeds. So it came down to this. When you look at the design, it has high cruising speeds, and it has a lot of modularity. It can be modified to do a lot of jobs. This is a module starship. But Starfleet felt that we need ships that can get there quicker, and we need faster engines that can last longer. They decided that that was more important and more relevant to Starfleet than modularity and standard warp speeds. So do you agree with Starfleet? Do you think they made a mistake, or do you think they were right to basically decommission this starship? So with all that, I would be curious in the comment section what you think. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think that the lack of high warp speed makes this ship, in my opinion, not very useful. Because yes, it can do a lot of things, but it can never get there on time. Because 7.5, yes, that's great that you can cruise at that speed for a long time, but the fact that you can only cruise at high warp speeds for a small amount of time means that you can't get anywhere very quickly. When you have another starship who can get there, yes, you're going to have some wear and tear on your engines, but you're going to get there, and you're going to be there, and you're going to be there for the fight. This ship is slow. Let's be honest with it. It's slow. I don't think it's very effective. I think it was a good choice for the Federation to phase it out. I definitely think that the New Orleans class is a far superior ship than this.
Thank you for watching Trek Wars. If you like this material, please subscribe and make a comment. And with that being said, victory is life.